I thought about titling this video something like "Booktube has ruined me," but I didn't because it's not true. And although what this video concept is parallel to a sort of like "Booktube has ruined me" video, it's not that dramatic, trust me. But that's not to say that being on Booktube, being a creator, whatever, being a superstar, hasn't changed how I read books and the books I read, even if slightly. That's what this video is about. I started Booktube a year ago, maybe like a year and a month ago. Happy 1 year, babies. And my reading habits are notably different than they were a year ago. So for the past couple months, I've only done one themed reading video. The books are back there. But I've only done one themed reading video. And then the rest of the time I've been slipping, it was intentional, back to my old method of reading. The way I read before Booktube is I would pick up a book, and if I'm really enjoying it, I'll usually read like, I don't know, the whole book in a short period of time, but that's usually not the case. It's very rare that I pick up one book and I want to read it no matter what mood I'm in. So I'll read some of that book, and then when I'm tired of reading that book, or more just am not in the mood to read that book, I have lots of moods, which is why I have unintentionally developed this method of a reading life. I'm sure I'm making it out to be much more than it is, but it's very rare that I'm always in the mood for one book. And when I'm reading for a video, you don't really have that luxury of being able to pick up whatever book you want. It's like, this is the assignment. And that can be really grueling and put me in reading slumps because I'm like, I just read books that I hated and I read them in a very short time span, so I'm spent. But like I was saying, my process is I'll start a book, and then when I'm not in the mood to pick it up, instead of DNFing it or forcing myself to read it, I'll just pick up a new book. And then I continue the process. I'll read as much of that book in one sitting or in one or two sittings as I want and as I enjoy. And if I'm not feeling the book anymore, I'll stop reading that. And either I'll read the first one or I'll pick up a third book. And this goes on until I'm at like 5 to 10 books. And then I'm like, pump the brakes. Either you got to stop these books, DNF them, whatever, do not finish them. Give them an official, I'm not finishing this book, or finish books. And so it usually went like I would start 10 books in a month, maybe finish one, and then the next month I would finish those 10 books, and then the process would start back over. And what I really like about this method is that I always have a book I feel like picking up. And ultimately this leads to a lot more reading than I realize. I'm not finishing books every day. Sometimes I'll finish like 6 books in a week, but that's because I've been working up to them for weeks in advance. And then I can just read as much as I want to and it not feel like a burden, because I'm only ever picking up a book, only ever, like 90% of the time only picking up a book that I want to. And for books that are really a drag, you can just read one page, move on. I don't feel like reading the same book when I go to bed that I do when I wake up, in midday, when I'm going somewhere, when I'm doing something. Like, those are a lot of different moods. Sometimes I want something fluffier. Sometimes I want a book that takes more work, more mental mastication to digest. And other times I want a nonfiction book. The last thing about this process that I really like is that it takes the pressure off DNFing a book, because you can just start a new one, and usually after a few cycles, there are like 3 or 4 books in my Rolodex, whatever, stack of books. I leave them littered around my house. It's usually not a stack, but there become a few books that I never feel like picking up. And it's such an easy way of DNFing those books without the anxiety. I'm being so dramatic. Without the anxiety of telling yourself you're going to stop reading them. You can just say, well, I'll read that tomorrow if I feel like it, and then tomorrow if I feel like it, and then 3 months pass and you're like, okay, well, I never feel like picking this up and I don't feel bad about DNFing it at all. Let's get into the books that I've been reading. I read 2 books during this cycle of finish 2 books during this cycle of... Cheers. Do you guys like tea? If so, tell me your favorite flavor. This is Trader Joe's decaf candy cane green tea. And I don't think they sell it anymore because it's from like 2 or 3 years ago. And the sachets, is that how you say it? These things, they don't come wrapped in plastic. They're just like in the box. So I thought they would be stale and disgusting or whatever, just kind of like no flavor, but they still work. So I'm still making this tea. It's really, really good. There's dust in my drink from flying around and then landing in it. What can you do? But if they do still carry it, I highly recommend. I love a peppermint tea. I also drink decaf tea, and this may seem silly for super fans of the channel because I drink a lot of caffeine, but I do have a caffeine addiction. I'll get a headache if by noon I haven't had caffeine. But I drink decaf tea because I want to know how much caffeine I'm having. I'm not trying to be crippled by a caffeine addiction for the rest of my damn life. Like, I've tried quitting sometimes, and by the 3rd day I'm like laying on a couch feeling like my head's about to explode. So I haven't done that, but I'm also trying to not up my caffeine tolerance, hence why I drink decaf tea. But I love a peppermint, candy cane, whatever, mint tea. Also, when I'm filming these, I have to turn my rinky-dinky little heater off, and my hands, my poor fingers, get really chilly. My fingers and toes, what are those called? Not appendages, extremities. But they get really chilly, and so this is how I keep them from not falling off. Did I explain what the video concept is? What I actually read? It's not that being on BookTube has made me pick up entirely different books. I certainly have picked up books that I never had any intention of reading. I'm looking at you, Mitch Album, and your shitty ass book, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. If you guys want a review of that, watch the Margot Robbie vid. But, like I've explained, I'm not going back into this. I'm gonna have to cut half this video because I've been talking out. By Natsuo Kirino is the only book that I finished during this cycle. This is a translated Japanese thriller novel, and it's really, really good. It has great character studies. The characters are so well fleshed out. Flesh is a big theme in this because a body gets cut up. It's a murder. It's not a mystery. There's a murder, and then it's kind of a slow burn, very good tension. What happens after the murder and to the characters, and it's really good. I talked about it in my last video, so we won't talk about it anymore. The next book that, did I say only book I finished? I finished 2 books. And the second one is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I've wanted to read this book, or thought about reading this book for years now, but I really didn't like the book cover that was out. I was on Google or Amazon or something, and this popped up, and I was like, no way. There's a new cover out? And so I called Barnes & Noble, and they had 1 copy in, and I flew there and bought it and took the new cover. They're releasing all the new covers. Well, they're re-releasing her books with new covers. I don't know if a new publisher bought the rights or something. Who's to say? But I really didn't like the old cover, and that deterred me from reading the book. Listen, I don't want to be reading ugly ass books. I really, really enjoyed Rebecca. I thought there was a good chance that I would like it, but I didn't know I would enjoy it this much. This is marketed as the classic tale of romantic suspense, and it is. I think someone who tells you that this is like a thriller or very exciting would be a lie. I don't think this book is very exciting. The first 50 pages are kind of like, where's this book going? But you kind of know where it's going from the premise, from the synopsis, and there's a sort of prologue type thing. It's in the present, and then it flashes back to all the events that happen. It's very similar to the prologue, is that what it's called? Of Donna Tartt's The Secret History, both of which are very necessary to the novel. They give the novel tension and an eeriness that's really great. Anyway, after the first 50 pages, you kind of settle into life at Manderley, which is the iconic, most dominating image of the book. Manderley is an estate on the coast of somewhere in Britain. I recently learned the difference between Britain, England, and Great Britain. That's a lie, I didn't. The first 50 pages are just the narrator falling in love / getting married to a very wealthy man who owns Manderley and whose wife, Rebecca, has died very recently. And so for the first 300 pages, which is 3/4 of the book, it's just their life at Manderley, the estate that the rich man Maxim, or Max if you're Rebecca, owns. And I love the atmosphere of Manderley, and I love the eerie tension. I think I was saying this 10 minutes ago, but the book is not exciting. If you don't like the book 50 pages in, put it down, because you're not, you'll be wasting another 250 pages before you actually get to anything more than exposition. But if you like the exposition, then the plot twist or escalation in the plot is very fun and exciting. I really, really enjoyed this, and 30 pages in, I ordered 2 more of her books, which are in the mail. No, they're not. They arrive. Maybe I'll do a book haul. Also, Alfred Hitchcock did a film of Rebecca, which I think would be fun. But I read that he changes the plot twist because it's too risque, and that people wouldn't be receptive to it, which is a little annoying. I wanted to say that Cormac McCarthy did a film adaptation. Now onto the books that I haven't finished. We'll start with, I have a Kindle. The only reason I bought this, I had a Nook in middle school because I thought it would be so cool, but then the process of buying books and stuff, I can't buy an online book. It goes against my constitution. So I really don't use it, and I'm only reading one book on here. It's the Kindle Paperwhite, and it's the most expensive version because it was only $10 more to get a few more gigabytes, and then it's only $10 more to get no lock screen ads, and I was frothing at the mouth. Buying a Kindle I knew damn well I would never use. But I bought it, and the only reason I bought it was for travel because I was going somewhere, you guys, and I packed 11 books in my check bag, and the bag weighed something stupid 50 kilos, and I was you're kidding me, which is 100 some pounds. So I took the books out of my suitcase, and I committed to just using a Kindle. The one I'm not doing an in-depth review of the Kindle Paperwhite, but one thing I really do like about it is the light, the warm light. Mine also has adjustable lighting, which only the most expensive model does. Burning money is one of my favorite pastimes. Maybe we'll try burning books. If you like that idea, comment down below, and maybe next video I'll surprise you. But what I like about the Kindle is the warm, glowing light, and I can turn my lights off and lay in bed and read it. Also, I don't like holding a chunky ass book above my head. And sometimes I just want to, so that's what the Kindle's for, but I'm too lazy to check out books and then send them to my Kindle or whatever. I'll get over myself, I promise. But the only book I'm reading on here right now is The Lord of the Rings, which I've tried reading twice before this. Once in middle school, right after I finished The Lord of the Rings, and then again, I want to say in high school a few years later, and it was just, I don't know. I couldn't get into it, and I'm not really having a similar issue. I really like the eerie tension of the what are they called? Ghost face? From Scream. I don't know what they're called. They're not black people on horses. They're black figures on horses. But I'm enjoying it decently, and I can't put it down a third time or else I'll never read The Lord of the Rings. But I'm having a good time, and I think that in bed with the warm glow light is the perfect place to read it. So that's that. I usually read this at nighttime when I want to feel like I'm in a sensory deprivation chamber. Reading The Lord of the Rings in a different land, in a fantasy world. The next book is Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, author of Eat, Pray, Love. There's my pen in it. And I got this because I was trolling around YouTube and I saw a video where Olivia Rodrigo says that this is her favorite book, and I was like, maybe I'll do I read her favorite book for the clickbait, but I started reading the book and I was like, I don't know if I actually want to do that. And it's not that it's bad, it's just that I don't know if I want to make a video about it. So this has been, and I'm probably not going to make a video about it. And I can't return it to Amazon because I wrote in it. What can you do? I'll probably just give it to someone. Unless I end up making the video plot twist. The next book is Atlas Shrugged. You hate to see it. You hate to see it. But I love Ayn Rand. I agree with her takes on the self. Objectivism, as they call it. I don't know anything about politics. I'm not here to tell interpretations of Ayn Rand, where it applies to politics, capitalism, all that. But I love her ideas on the self, and I read 100 pages of this, and you guys, someone commented and they were like, I like her ideas, but her writing is just atrocious. And the plot twist is that I think her writing is great. Her stories are actually very enjoyable. I love the characters. They're such great archetypes, and the female characters are the most memorable and best. Dominique from The Fountainhead, and what's his broad's name? I don't know, but the female character in Atlas Shrugged is also really compelling, and I enjoy her storytelling, and I think her writing is good. It's very pointed, and it's just unadorned. No frills, no fat in the writing. I hate when a book, like Ninth House is a silly comparison, but a great example of a book that just meanders every which way, has no discernible plot whatsoever, and everything is just random up until the very end when there's like another random plot twist. So everything is just random, and there's no story, and it's super aggravating. But what Ayn Rand does a great job of is telling a direct story. There's no fat. There is no fat. And I agree with her philosophies. Bite me. I'm 100 pages into Atlas Shrugged, and I enjoy the story, but the ideas are similar to The Fountainhead, which is obvious. This is the sequel in philosophy, not in storyline, to The Fountainhead, and it feels like I've already internalized a lot of what she has to say, so I haven't been itching to pick it up for anything but the story, but I'm enjoying it, and I'll finish it eventually. Her books are also very, very readable, contrary to what I perceive to be popular belief. Like Tolstoy and Rand are very readable. I think most Russian authors I've read are very, very readable, and they feel like, if you haven't read one before, they feel like some of the most inaccessible literature. Anyway, that's that. The next book I'm reading is Hamlet, which is not a book, it's a play, and I read the prologue, or whatever the hell, and I was like, I'm not ready for my Shakespeare phase. One day, I read a couple plays in high school, don't really remember anything, didn't care about them, and I was at Barnes & Noble, and I was like, maybe it's time, maybe it is time. It's not time, I'm putting this down, I'm DNFing it. I'm not in the mood, but I'm a sucker for a good quote, really. And it seems like Shakespeare, he gets it. He gets people in a way that few authors seem to. Tolstoy is my pinnacle for understanding humanity, but it seems like Shakespeare might too. I just can't get past the Old English, or I've had no motivation to. So encourage me. If you like Shakespeare, let me know. I'm putting this down for the time being, though. The next book I'm reading is Lily King's The English Teacher. I've read Writers and Lovers, so good, by Lily King. I've also read Euphoria by Lily King. I don't hear anyone talking about it, and that needs to change because that book is amazing. And after reading those two and seeing that Lily King, or her publisher or whatever, was re-releasing the book covers to her backlog, I bought all those books with new covers. The old covers are atrocious. Oh, I've also read Five Tuesdays in Winter, which I think is unremarkable. It's a short story collection. I enjoyed the first story, but the rest are just like, okay, whatever. I really like Lily King's writing. It's really fantastic, and it's so easy to binge, but there's also such a great depth to the writing. I am 25 pages in. It just seems like it'll end up being a bleak family drama, but it's easy to get through. And another great aspect of my reading method is that some books I can read while listening to music and others I can't. This is one of the books that I can like blast my music and have a good time reading it. Pretty unremarkable so far, but a good time. The next book that I've been reading is A Passage to India by Forster, who I have claimed is one of my favorite authors ever. I stand by that claim. I really enjoyed Howard's Inn and Where Angels Fear to Tread, but I'm 36 pages in and I'm so bored. I forget how long, or not really how long, but that it took me a minute to get into Howard's Inn, but slowly Forster really sold me, and by the end I was like, yeah, that was amazing. But so far it's just like old Englishy interactions and stuff, and I'm not really enjoying it. This happens with a lot of book. For whatever reason in the beginning I'm just bored, like probably most people. Starting a book is very difficult. That's another reason why I do this, because when I have the mental capacity to start a book, I'll be like, I'm starting a book, and then I start it, and it's much easier to pick up a book because you know what you're getting yourself back into than it is to start a book. So that's another great reason, because you get to choose which world you want to dive into without the mental effort of having to create it in your head. I keep telling myself that anytime I want to start a book, I'm going to have to read the first 50 pages at least in one sitting so that I can get into the story and just plow on ahead without stopping at the like awkward 20 to 30 page mark where you're like kind of acquainted but kind of still bored with the story and not invested. So I'm really going to try the 50 page method, but I didn't hear, and that's probably why I'm bored. But I really do love Forster, and his dialogue and the way he does people and clashes between ideologies is so great. So I'm going to keep reading A Passage to India. The next book I'm reading, and one that I am really enjoying, is I Captured the Castle by Dodie Smith. And this is a copy from like 50 years ago or something stupid like that. I'm sure more than 50 years ago. 1949. This is a girl's journal. It's fiction, but it's a girl writing about her family's time in an abandoned castle that has been re-inhabited by her and her family. And it's really good, and I'm really enjoying it. And I don't want to say too much more because it'll probably be in a recommendation video where I recommend it to you later. I'm only 110 pages in. Oh, the reason I have this old ass copy that's like literally falling apart is because you should see the dust jacket. Look at this crusty ass dust jacket. Anyway, I almost threw it out and then I was like, no, I'll just keep it for hoarding's sake. But it looks okay without the dust jacket. But the reason I have this old ass copy that I bought on eBay, sniped, is because I hate the modern cover and it looks so ugly. So I bought this. And it's really good. Very cozy. It's a great read for fall or winter. It'll probably be in a winter rec video. It's funny, it's cozy, good writing, endearing characters, and I can't wait to finish it. The next book is Play It As It Lays by Joan Didion. I'm 40 pages in, and I don't know how I feel about Didion. I've read one or two stories from the White album, and I'd never finished it. This was before I started BookTube. That was before I started BookTube, and I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Didion yet. A lot of what she writes about is incomprehensible to someone like me being someone that doesn't really give a shit about history and is not well versed in the 60s. Didion is a queen of the 60s. She writes all about the 60s, and I don't get the references. And a lot of her writing is very, like, sparse and ethereal almost, but, like, ethereal not in execution, but in effect. And it pisses me off a little bit because it's like, okay, I don't get it. The White Album is an essay collection centered around topics, ideas, whatever from the 60s. You know, the Beatles, the White Album. And I put it down because I didn't get any of the references. I mean, what I do like about Didion is sometimes she'll have a, like, really banger insight, sentence, or paragraph. And I really enjoy that. But for the parts of the book that are heavily based on facts and events from the 60s, I'm kind of just like, if anyone recommends me the White Album with a straight face, be for real. Be for real. You didn't get all the references. Like, what are people... I want to know what people are talking about when they say they're obsessed with Play des Delays. Like, your Gen Z ass... I'm sorry, baby. Your Gen Z ass is not catching it all. And maybe you appreciate it for, like, the fun sentences like I do, but I need to read more Didion before I form an opinion on her. I actually bought this along with 2 of her other books because I do like her prose when it's not rooted in history. 90% of the time it is, so that's a catch-23 for me. But I bought this with 2 other books and started this book and then returned the other 2 because I was like not picking Didion up over the like billion other authors I want to. Didion talks about in an interview how deliberate her wording and construction of a novel is. And it's very apparent in the book. Each sentence is very, just like no BS. And I appreciate that. In a way that I don't appreciate Cormac McCarthy, because he tries to do a similar thing and I don't. I don't like the staccato, short, peacocky, look at how simple I am. But I believe Didion. I think Didion is nuts in the best way possible. But when Cormac does it, it feels performative in a bad way. Everyone's performing, baby. I don't know. The passages of Didion's that I like, I really, really love. But then sometimes I'm just like, I don't get it. Which is probably my issue, but I think that timeless fiction is enjoyable at any point, hence timeless. I just don't like how rooted she is in the 60s. And I think you can do both. Be rooted in a time period, but also appeal to future generations. And I think that she plays more heavily into the like incisive insights into the 60s than she does into posterity. The main character in here loves to drive. And I really like that point because I love to drive. And I was like, maybe we could have been best friends, Joan Didion, if I was around and popping in the 1960s. Like I was saying, some passages are really banger. I'll read one and move on. Quote, "Those are the facts. Now I lie in the sun and play solitaire and listen to the sea. The sea is down the cliff, but I am not allowed to swim, only on Sundays when we are accompanied, and watch a hummingbird. I try not to think of dead things in plumbing. I try not to hear the air conditioner in that bedroom in Encino. I try not to live in Silver Wells or in New York or with Carter. I try to live in the now and keep my eye on the hummingbird. I see no one I used to know, but then I'm not just crazy about a lot of people. I mean, maybe I was holding all the aces, but what was the game?" Really good. Another quote. "She never puts on any weight. You'll notice that's often true of selfish women." Amen. I do like Didion, but I think I'm gonna have to circle back to this after reading... What's the one about? Not My Year of Rest and Relaxation. What is it called? The Year... I don't know, but that one is a memoir about her dead husband, I think, and then her daughter died shortly after. I don't know if that memoir is about both of them. I know that there are 2 memoirs. I think one of them is like Bluest Nights or something, and then the other is the one I'm talking about that I used to always get confused with Ottessa Moshfegh's book. But I think that will really endear me to Didion and allow me to be like, okay, you can have your 60s and I'll just appreciate you for what you are. The next book I'm reading is The Other by Thomas Tryon. In this Hot New York Review Books edition. This is marketed as a thriller, mystery, horror type novel. I think it's from the 50s. It's from 1971. And I'm 50 pages in. See, look, I did my 50-page method. I'm 50 pages in and nothing scary has happened. I do enjoy the atmosphere, and I love the intro to this book. I thought it was really, really great. It's very freaky. If you're gonna sell me on a book as a horror thriller, it has to be exciting. And that's where I got upset with this book. Like, you can't get 50 pages in and it just be like boring as hell, you know? If it's marketed as a like unput-downable thriller horror book. It's not, I don't know. Maybe I have too high of expectations for horror novels, but I picked this up because I wanted a fun, suspenseful, thriller, horror type novel. And when I didn't get that within 50 pages of an already arguably pretty short, around 200-page book, I was like, well... But I do enjoy the atmosphere, so I'll pick this up now that I know not to expect too much going in, but I hope it turns out to be good. The next book is Christopher Paolini's Murtagh. This is the 5th book in the inheritance cycle. He wrote Aragon when he was like 15 or 16 years old, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I read, these are like middle grade, I don't know, kids books, and I read all 4 of them when I was growing up, and I really, really loved them. And so when this one came out this fall, I was like, well, up to the release day, I was like, I don't like revisiting childhood period, but revisiting childhood favorite books in particular. I like to keep those memories in amber. And so I was like, it's cool that he's releasing a 5th book, but I'm not going to pick it up. Even though I did really love the books, but for the same goes for a lot of books I read when I was a kid. I don't want to revisit them, you know? Let a good thing stay a good thing. I'm not trying to shit on kids' books now that I'm older and likely won't enjoy them that much. And that's what is happening in here. I'm 20 pages in, which is 1 chapter, and I'm just not... I don't think I'm going to read this book, or maybe I'll save it for when I'm just feeling like really apish. I don't like his writing. His writing is not very good. He falls into the trap that a lot of amateurish writers do, and that is using big vocab words just period. Using big vocab words when it's unnecessary and detracts from the sentence and story as a whole. I'll give you an example. Quote, "A pair of feathered merchants burst out of a warehouse door, arguing vociferously." Unnecessary. 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 The beauty of vocab is that it expresses, the beauty of effective vocabulary is that it expresses something that couldn't otherwise be conveyed with other words. You know what I'm saying? So when someone uses a big vocab word, when a more simple, well-known one would be not only work, but be more effective, it's very aggravating to me. I don't know. I'm being nitpicky, which is something I didn't want to do, especially for this book. I just wanted to read it and enjoy it for the middle grade story that it is. And the story might be really good. Like I said, I'm only a chapter in, but I don't think I'm going to keep revisiting this at the moment. Especially with Lord of the Rings, it feels very derivative and childish and amateur when I'm literally reading Lord of the Rings right now. So I think I'm going to set that on the back burner, put the dust jacket back on it, and put it on my shelf, but I'm happy I bought it because it's fun. The last book I'm reading is Kissinger by Walter Isaacson. I've really been itching for just some chunky facts, you know? And so I picked up Kissinger. I was really plowing through this book, and then I got to this part, and Kissinger's kind of getting on my nerves. He's really a ladder climber from what Isaacson is making him out to be. Like, he's just there to climb the ladder, and he's very entrenched in academia, but it seems more like, I don't know, I just don't like academia, and I don't like the writing and work, books, whatever, that come as a product of academia. There are excerpts from papers Kissinger wrote, and I just kind of like roll my eyes. Like, I hate the, like the vocab thing, I hate when people are unnecessarily complicated or veiled or like whatever complicated. When they're unnecessarily complicated, in order to like gatekeep and self-aggrandize and just like peacock, and I really don't like that. And to me, that's like what academia is in very large part. It's just like a bunch of people petting their own egos and writing shit nobody cares about. Sorry. But I really enjoyed this story of his youth, and this usually happens in political memoirs. I say like I've read billions of them. I'm talking about Becoming by Michelle Obama. Overall I really enjoyed the book, but I really liked the beginning half. I don't remember what portion of the book follows her in adolescence and in college, just pre-Barack. I don't have anything against Barack. This isn't a political stance, but when it got to the White House, I was just kind of like, oh, okay. I just really enjoy people. I like people. I'm not into politics. So when it starts getting very entrenched in politics, I just kind of, okay. Not really for me. Another fun fact, I've read 2 of Walter Isaacson's other books. I've read his biography of Steve Jobs, he does biographies, and his biography of Benjamin Franklin. And I actually haven't finished either, but I've read half of them. Like almost exactly half. I'll get a few hundred pages in, and then I just will never pick them up again. But it's fine. It's fun. And when I'm in the mood for a nonfiction, this is what I've been picking up. That does it for what I actually read. These are the books that I've been reading over the past couple months instead of making themed videos, and I'm kind of really I'm a bit tired of all of them, and there are themed videos in the works that I'm excited for. The takeaway from this video, I'm not really sure. I think that just about does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed the deep dive into the psyche of a young superstar. I'll see you soon.